So the mayor's race, it's heating up. We have got 3.5 weeks until Election Day. There are 9 candidates running. Now, if one of them doesn't get more than 50% of the vote, the top 2 will head to a runoff. So pretty safe to say, Alden, that we've got a runoff in our future?
I think it's pretty safe to say that, yeah. If the last election where we had 14 candidates, I believe, in 2019 is any indication. I think Lightfoot was the top vote getter with 19% of the vote. So, yeah, I think it's pretty clear we're headed to a runoff.
And I'm going to go through that list just as a reminder to all the folks listening. The candidates include State Representative Kam Buckner, Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia, activist Jamal Green, Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson, Alderwoman Sophia King of the 4th Ward, incumbent Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Alderman Roderick Sawyer of the 6th Ward, former CPS CEO Paul Vallas, and businessman Willie Wilson. So, Lorraine, we know that from polling, crime, that's a top issue for Chicagoans.
Yes.
You think the candidate who communicates the best plan to reduce crime wins the race? Is that it? I mean, it's important, but there are a lot of other factors to consider.
Right, there are other factors. There's schools. There's public transit. Although crime on public transit is part of the crime issue, I think the person who can get across to people that it is a complex problem. There is no magic bullet. Yes, we do need, law enforcement. You need someone to call when someone breaks into your home. But we also need to address things like lack of education, other things that put people on a cycle to where they're more likely to get involved with crime. And I think, Chicagoans are pretty sophisticated. They, I think, understand that this is a complex issue. And the person, I would hope, who can shed the most light and not heat on the subject probably has a good chance to become the next mayor and relate the crime problem to other problems.
Yeah.
You got to keep businesses in the city, and businesses won't stay if they're, feel like they can't run a business safely. And you want to get people on public transit. They're not going to ride CTA if they feel like crime is out of control.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's one candidate trying to break out by talking pointedly about police accountability, and that's Jamal Green. Maxwell, he recently spoke with Block Club Chicago. So what is his plan?
Yeah, so Jamal is a community activist who has protested against police violence, among other topics in the city of Chicago. He's called for a $100 million investment in public safety measures outside of policing, like violence interrupters, as well as $30 million for a youth intervention program. So really trying to push for solutions outside of policing in his campaign. He's also been one of the few, if not the only candidates who has not explicitly called for more policing, as that's been one of the major issues that a lot of candidates have brought up.
If he wins, he would be the city's youngest mayor. How much does the pushback that he's receiving have to do with his age, Alden?
Well, I would say that it has a fair amount to do with it. Kind of in a very colorful exchange, and I want to say in the most recent debate or forum, candidate Willie Wilson essentially noted how that he doesn't respond to children.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Alden. Yeah. Let's play that clip.
First, it is disgusting that we have a 70-plus-year-old man on this stage who is a sharecropper from down south who would get on TV and constantly double down on hunting people down like rabbits. He should know what that means and know how it feels. And when you have that mentality that Willie Wilson has, you have Tyree Nichols, you have George Floyd's, you have Anjanette Young's. We cannot have that in this city. We should not even be continuing to talk about expanding the police budget. And since Lori is so pro-police, when I'm mayor this year, I hire her as one.
Willie Wilson, Jamal Green threw a punch there. 30 seconds.
Well, I don't respond to kids.
So that was a tense moment there, an exchange between activist Jamal Green and Willie Wilson. Yeah, what were you saying there, Alden?
So I think anyone who's running for mayor of Chicago, city of Chicago, and is 27 years old is gonna run into some pushback. People not feeling confident that this is someone who's been around long enough. And I think Jamal's style is also one that might rub some folks the wrong way. As a community activist, he has been electrifying. I mean, he's He shut down a ton of Chase banks. Perhaps is the most kind of prominent thing that he's done in response to some reporting that we've actually done here at WBEZ. And got a lot of eyeballs and attention, but I think he may have also kind of got the backup of a number of people who felt maybe he was a little too brash, too bold. But I think his inexperience is something that a lot of voters are going to they may be clued into what he's saying.
Yeah.
So a lot of what he's saying, particularly if you're a progressive thinker, are things that you would agree with. But the question is, here's this humongous city with this enormous budget. Is he going to have the wherewithal to really kind of be able to manage and keep control of that?
Well, according to our friend on YouTube, Chicago 675, Jamal has a very bright future in politics. That's a comment left by one of our viewers watching us right now break down the week's news. Let's listen to another clip. Here's where Green mentioned a few solutions to address crime. Here's what he had to say on with Block Club Chicago.
Tackling the mental health problem with social workers and reopening up those mental health facilities as wellness centers that tackle mental health holistically. There's not just psychiatry, but all different type of ways. So to get people well so that everyone wants to come into the institution and we address that stigma. And then making sure that young people have opportunities and safe spaces to go. And then moving police officers to only deal with violent crime. That's our strategy. And we would definitely be way under 700 with that strategy.
And that's $700,000. Lorraine, Green is one of 7 candidates who says he or she will reopen the city's shuttered mental health facilities, which is according to the WBEZ Mayoral questionnaire. We are emerging from a pandemic where mental health issues also were top of mind. Do you think that this is an issue that will resonate with voters?
I think it'll resonate with voters, but I also think it's something that people feel like they can easily throw out there, and it's something that people think is easy to be done. Let's just reopen these clinics. And you've got to have the money to reopen them. You've got to have the money to hire, people to staff them. The city right now does have an initiative, and I'll be curious to see what the evaluation of it shows, where they have put more money into working with existing clinics to expand their services, to more city residents. I do think the idea of having more people, mental health workers who respond to calls that would normally go to police makes a lot of sense. And that's something that the police department is working on. That would be a good thing to see stepped up, because so many calls that come to police, to 911, involve things that are probably don't require an armed officer to respond to. So if we had more teams where mental health workers could go out and respond, that would be great, I think.
Maxwell, Block Club also interviewed State Rep Kam Buckner earlier this week. What stood out to you about his plans?
He's kind of established himself as the CTA candidate, and as somebody who rides the CTA very frequently, it's kind of my main transportation. That's definitely caught my eye. He's brought a lot of attention to the issue of ghost trains, which is where you look at a tracker either on a screen at the station or on your phone, says one is coming in 5 to 10 minutes, and it just disappears at a certain point. So he's brought that up as a major issue in getting around the city. He's also touted the planned Red Line extension from 95th South to 130th Street. It would open up more transportation lanes for far south siders as well. So really trying to focus in on the value of transit across the city.
Yeah. Well, the mayoral candidates, they're all participating in a lot of forums and debates right now. I'm sure you all have been trying to keep up just as I have been. I am hosting 2 forums as well next week during the show on Wednesday and Thursday at 11 right here on Reset. We're partnering with the Sun-Times and the University of Chicago on those. So I have a question for all of you. What issues do you think that the candidates need to address more before Election Day? I'm looking at you first, Alden.
The thing I would say is that as Lorraine was kind of pointing out, there's been a lot of talk about crime, but I think I want to hear some very clear details. And the forums, at least the ones that I've caught thus far, folks get 30 seconds, they maybe get a minute, and the questions are very broad. So my hope is that when people use that time, either they carve out a very small slice of the kind of the crime issue and they talk about that. And there are a range of things with regard to, so J-Mal's talked some about going after the underlying causes. So, kind of give me an example and tell me very clearly what you want to do about that. Because I think this being a prevailing issue, everybody's talking about how they're going to address it in some way. I think the nuances of how people will react to this when they go to the polls is who's the candidate that is going to address crime in the way that I want to see it. So you've got some people who want to see more social services. They want to see, addressing some of the kind of the underlying issues, the youth, particularly the 18 to 24 cohort. What can we do to help bring those people whole? And then you've got some folks who are just hardliners. I want to know that when somebody has done something wrong, that we're going to give police the resources that they need to go out and capture someone and bring them to justice. And they don't want necessarily to hear about the philosophical, larger picture things around how we should use police. It's like people are being robbed, people are being killed. How do we stop that?
What are you going to do about it?
And so I think the candidate who's able to kind of give the kind of details that hit those boxes and give people the sense, okay, I think I can really go with this person because they're going to make something happen. Yeah. I think are the one's going to ultimately come out on top.
Do you agree, Lorraine?
I would agree. I mean, the devil is always in the details, especially when, you're trying to get a job, then you get a job. How are you going to do the job, especially in a city this big? One thing that I think people are not really talking about, but should be because it impacts everything else, is city finances. Chicago still has these very underfunded pensions. It's a wonky issue. People's eyes glaze over. But as long as you're, underfunding them and somehow have got to make up that deficit, that's money that, is going to go to one thing. Where are you going to find the money for all these other things that sound great but have to be paid for? And one other quick thing I'd like to hear more about is how's the next mayor going to deal with public schools when you're going to have a 21-member school board in about a year? What are you going to do about that? The next mayor can't just say, well, it's on you, and just let it go.
Yeah. So. Any thoughts, Maxwell?
Yeah, first off, I'd just like to say I am kind of heartened at seeing the discussion around mental health in this race. I think that's really important, and just having an open discussion about what people need in order to feel safe and secure in their own minds is a wonderful thing. But something that I would like to see more of for sure is the issue of environmental justice. Cover communities on the southeast side that for years and years have been pushing for the restoration of land that was used by steel mills, that was used by other forms of heavy industry. And the city has repeatedly said communities like the southeast side are overburdened with pollution. So more of a focus on how to address that, how to move into an era of green industry, really kind of heal communities like the southeast side, Pilsen, southwest side that have faced a lot of industrial pollution. Bringing that more on the radar would be great.
Yeah.